Good morning. Guten Morgen, Savubona. I don't know how many languages you are talking. It's also a pleasure for me to be connected with you now, the Dominican sisters. I think you are close to Joburg now. Yeah. So for me, it's a great chance to be connected with you in your general chapter. I feel the closeness of our communities as we are women in the church. You are Dominicans, I'm a Franciscan, so I think there are many things which are unifying us. As Franz Josef Wagner has said already, yes, I wanted to participate in Rome for the superior international meeting from the General Superiors in which meet all 3 years. And the theme is this year embracing vulnerability on the synodal way. Because I catched COVID in South Africa, I had to stay at home and isolate myself, but this is now the chance to come back to South Africa via a medium which is more safe, and I'm not spreading anything to you. Yeah, in my reflections, I would like to give you just a few spotlights on what do I see is the necessity for us to be prophetic, to live out our charism in the world of our days and also in the church of our days. When we had a preparational meeting 2 days ago, Sister Anne, Sister Mary, and Franz Josef Wagner and myself, yes, there was the interest that I'm also telling a little bit about the synodal way the German church is now undertaking already since 2 years. And it will take another year to finish that synodal way in the German church. And of course, Pope Francis, as you all know, announced this Bishop Synod, worldwide synodal way for the whole entire church. And this was now, I could participate online to most of the talks which were held now in Rome during this meeting of the UISG. Only yesterday, when there was an audience with Pope Francis, I couldn't attend. And for instance, Sister Natalie Beckwart, the first sub-secretary from the Bishop Synod, she encouraged us, all the religious women worldwide, to live out our charism, and competences within the church, and also to allow members of our congregations to become leaders, not only in our own communities, but also in the church worldwide. I think this is one of the chances we have to bring in our competences, our authority, our experiences, our way to see things differently, not always better than men would do it, but diverse. The more women are involved in church decision-making, decision-taking, the more diverse the leadership culture of our church will become. So this was very strongly also emphasized by Sister Natalie Beckar. And this is one topic we also are addressing in the synodal way of the German church. I'm a member of that forum, Women in Ministries and Offices, in the German synodal way. And we are talking about two different things. How we can bring women in more positions which are already possible according to canon law. So where the Pope or the Vatican doesn't have a say, because it's covered by the existing canon law. And these are all positions which don't require an ordination. Yeah, for instance, teaching theology, doing pastoral work, being a leader in a parish, being a leader of a women's organization or another organization. Pope Francis did that already in the past years, that he involves more and more women and also religious women in the dicasteries and congregations of the Vatican. And with the Curia reform, which was now published on the St. Joseph's Day, it's even possible that women or other laymen will become the leaders of several congregations. So this is really new, that lay people can even be the responsible person for a whole congregation. And I think the more women we are involved in leadership, and we say we need 30% women in leadership positions, that a whole culture can be changed in an organization. And as you all know, worldwide, when the sexual abuse of children, youth, women were disclosed more and more, one reason for the abuse in a systemical or structural part of the church is that the leadership positions mainly are held by men who are ordained. So we have to make sure that the leadership is shared more with women and also lay men. Not because they are better. I repeat that. Not because laymen or lay women are better than ordained men, but the leadership culture will be more diverse, and there come more different perspectives together, and this would allow that maybe also it's not possible anymore to just hide crimes like this sexual abuse. The second aspect is to allow women, for instance, with the permission of the bishops, to baptize, to allow women to assist couples when they spend one another the sacrament of marriage, because this is a sacrament the man and the wife are giving them one another. So the church is only witnessing that sacrament. So there are many different areas in the life of the church which can be done by women. In one of our dioceses in Germany now, 7 lay persons, mainly women, have that permission now to baptize children or adults. And of course, there are other areas to teach theology, for instance. Yeah, professors for theology can also have a very high impact to be formators of the future priests. So which kind of theology do we teach? Yeah, what is our perspective on the scriptures, on the tradition, on the teaching of the church? Yeah, all the scientists have a certain perspective. So the more women are also professors for theology, the more it would allow that the teaching of the church, or the perspective, how we read the scriptures, how we see the foundation of the church is taught. And of course, then there's this other big issue of ordination, women becoming deaconess, women maybe one day becoming priests or bishops. In Germany, we are really now talking about these two themes, and we hope that the 2/3 majority will be achieved, that the German bishops bring that issue also forward to the Vatican on this worldwide level. Of course, the ordination of women cannot be decided in only one church, Germany or Brazil or Peru or Australia, but it is discussed in many, many churches around the world. We get some feedback from Australia or Latin America. I think some of you who come from Peru maybe even know more about that theme, how it is discussed in South America. There was a big assembly in Mexico last year where there was a strong wish from the Latin American church to say we need women as deaconess, not because we want to have that post or an office, or we want to become involved into the hierarchy of the church, but because we want to exercise and act out our charism. And in this patriarchal church, we would like to be involved more and act more independent on this patriarchal structure, which we have now. Last week, when we celebrate the feast of Catherine of Siena, whom I venerate very much because she's also my patroness. It's my name feast. Since 20 years, women's organization in Germany celebrate the Day of the Deaconess on that 29th of April. There were many speeches held and liturgies organized by women. And I heard a very good speech of a lady who worked very long time in Peru for Miserior. And she said, we don't need a deaconess to become a part of the clergy. We would need deaconesses who look, what does the world, the time, the societies where we are living need in our times? Where are people suffering? Where are areas of poverty? Where are areas of violation and the violence against women, the violence against children, the exploitation of the earth, our nature, our common home, our common house is all over the world. How can we as women live out our charism in saying, we want to overcome violence. We want to overcome structures of injustice, exploitation of the planet. How can we protect our common goods? And from that, looking into our society, looking where we are living, what is surrounding us, where are the needs of our times, then we could find new ways of answering as Christians, as religious, with this good news of Jesus that he wants to enable us to make things better, more human, preserve the nature, the creation of God and things like that. So I liked that speech very much. I liked also many talks in Rome. We had embracing vulnerability on the synodal way, which doesn't mean that we should just accept that we are vulnerable. Of course, we have to accept it as human beings, and the pandemic situation shows it now since 2 years. We are vulnerable. A small virus can affect our health, can even kill people. Maybe you also lost some members in your communities. We lost a few sisters here in Germany in our nursing care center. And the pandemic shows us that we are not perfect, that we are not machines, that our health is limited, and shows us also that a crisis from that worldwide dimension can affect the whole world. And of course, especially again, the people who live already in poverty. The rich countries like Germany could support the companies, but the poor people just lost their existence, their jobs. I saw that now when I was in KwaZulu-Natal. You heard maybe also that there were huge floods in the area of Durban. I saw the pictures, I saw the disaster when I went from the airport to our places. Eshowe and Bongolwane were not affected, but 1.5 hours far away from our convents, 40,000 people lost their houses. 7,000 people are now living in shelters, don't have proper water to drink, and no houses anymore. Thousands of houses were just destroyed. Of course, the slums where the poor people lived, but also new built houses are not existing anymore. And with the Cardinal Napier, the former Archbishop of Durban, who is now the administrator of the Diocese of Eshowe, we just looked how we can help the people and start a donation campaign to support. There are so many areas where people are suffering. The local people in Durban, they don't trust the government anymore because there were already corruption cases during the pandemic. So they trust the church organizations, and they hope for help, and that this time the help really reaches them instead of landing in corrupted people's bank accounts. I think trafficking of women is a sign of our time. Violation of women. Yesterday I read an article about the mafia killing women in Mexico on the borders to USA. The exploitation of the sexual exploitation also of women, that children, girls are forced to prostitution and are sold like things into other countries where they are exploited as illegal job takers, and all these crimes, which are also very, very much known in South Africa society. I think as women in the church, as women religious, we should, Pope Francis never is tired to address these issues, whether it's the issue of migration, whether it's the issue of exploitation of poor people. What I'm missing sometimes in the teaching of the church, also in the words of Pope Francis, is that we also look into our own church. We cannot ask the governments and other religious or the economics to overcome unjust situations. We also have to look how our structure of our church is a part of this injustice. If I talk with my nephews or nieces who are 30 years younger than myself, they would say, Sister Katharina, that's nice that you are still engaged in the church, but as long as women are discriminated in the church by the clergy, as long as women don't have the full access to the offices and ministries which are open for men, the church is losing its credibility more and more. And I really regret that because I think, as you also, I believe that Jesus Christ and the good news, the gospel, have a say in our world and time. There are so many areas where the voice of the churches would be so important to overcome unpeaceful, unjust situations. But as long as we don't reflect the structure and the system of our own church, and as long as we don't reach an equal status of men, women, and also other sexes in the church, we won't overcome the injustice. And we more and more, especially in the democratic countries, the voice of the churches won't be heard anymore. I don't know, Franz Josef Wagner, am I still in time, or shall I make a break here?
Still in time.
I'm still in time. You give me 5 or 10 minutes more?
Yes, please. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. What else? I see a huge chance we have as religious women, because many congregations like us, we are independent of the dioceses. Many of our congregations are of papal right. This gives us more independency from the bishops, of course, also financially. This allows us to raise our voices without fear. And I also feel that this strength we have as communities, we are not alone. If I raise my voice and my community stands behind me, what shall happen? Nobody can cancel my job. I'm not earning my money with a job in a diocese. So this gives us an independency. Many people here in Germany are looking to us, the religious, being involved in the synodal way of the German church. They say, you can say whatever you want. I have colleagues, even with a doctorate in theology, but they are working on a high position in a diocese, and they always have to reflect, what I'm saying now, is it covered by the bishop? Or does the general vicar stands behind me if I come up with that statement or that positioning? So as religious, we can make our own decisions, as you are doing now in your general chapter. If you make a position, what you want to achieve in the next 6 years or 5 years, I don't know how long your term is, you are free. Okay, only 4 years, which is good, because sometimes you feel tired. After a certain time, it's good to have elections once in a while. And also to reflect where we are standing. Where do we want to go? What is our charism? What from the roots of our founder or Catherine of Siena, what is the spirituality inviting us to live out in our times, in the 21st century, where we have to face war, pandemic situation, poverty, and things like that? What is your statement? Just make a statement and live it out as a congregation which is spread in several continents. Sometimes I experience also that people want to marginalize the synodal way we are undertaking in Germany, in saying these are only questions discussed in Germany, but this is not. These are not signs of the time affecting the whole church, and then we can withdraw it and saying no. We, for instance, we have discussed 3 years ago these issues and matters with our fellow sisters and delegates from South Africa and USA. We are not very big internationally, but we have these 2 regions in South Africa and USA. So we can say, no, the questions we discuss here are also existing in South Africa. They are also existing in USA. And sometimes that perspective of our internationality helped us to emphasize what we really want and what we want to express even more clear. And this gives us, I would say, also a strong position. So I just would like to encourage you for your discussions, reflections, of course, also your prayers. I'm convinced that the Holy Spirit is guiding us when we listen to one another, when we learn to hear more and more What does the other sister from this other culture can say to that perspective? How we can unify, not denying our diversity, but what is the common sense, the common insight? And when we pray, when we talk, when we listen, when we share, when we hear from other perspectives from outside, or when we hear from the people surrounding us. Yes, I would like to encourage you to continue with your chapter, to take courage to make your decisions, and not to have fear, and always to believe what is the theme of your chapter. I give you a future full of hope. All the situations of limitations we have to face in our communities, they cannot hinder Jesus and the Spirit to continue to work within us and through us. Whether we are more aged, like the convents maybe in Germany, we have many old members, but there is a power, there is that charism of the prayer, the wisdom. Pope Francis never becomes tired in saying we have to listen also to the old people. And of course, we need the visions of the younger ones, the dreams. So bring everything together, and I just want to encourage you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Katharina. I hope you still have time for a few questions that might
Of course.
arise. So we set up a microphone here. Let's see whether that works. So if anybody...
Hallo Katharina.
Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen. Thank you very much for encouraging us as a chapter body now during these days. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your statement you made at your chapter according the question how we can embrace our prophetic call into the church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, we, the Holy Childhood Sisters or Franciscan servants of the child Jesus, our charism is to empower women. This is the charism since 1855. Our foundress, Antonia Werr, she engaged herself to help women who came out of prison to start a new life. So this is our apostolate, to be at the side of women in need. And of course, we established several institutions, facilities in Germany where we accompany girls and women in need. When and in South Africa, we care more for children and youth, but also for families, people in all situations of need. 3 years ago, when my first term was over, I asked the sisters, do we also have something to say concerning the role of the women in our church? We are a social worker, we help the women in having problems in their families or coming out of prison, being poor, having a crisis. But do we also have a position concerning the role of the women in the church? And then we put our minds together and we said, yes, as Franciscan servants of the Holy Childhood of Jesus, we want to see that the church ends the discrimination against women in our church. We want that the vocations of women are accepted and proved. Yeah, women are not ordained because their vocations are not proved by the church only because of the sex, of the gender of the women. And we said, this is a discrimination. Last year, a book in Germany came out. 150 women gave a witness that they feel a deaconal or priestly vocation. They are working in the parishes, they are working maybe as teachers in the school, but they cannot act out fully their vocation from God because they are women, and the bishops won't prove their vocations. So this is what we said. We want to see that women have the full access to all ministries and offices. This is our common positioning, and that the vocation and that the offices and ministries in the church should be given to people because of their charism, because of their talents, because of their competences, and not because of sex and gender. And this is actually also now the position we make as a forum of women in the synodal way of the German church. And another position, I don't know whether Sister Francesca, you are also asking this one. We also said that the discrimination of people who are homosexual or queer or live not according to the teaching, the moral teaching of the church, shall be changed. And when I talk now with Sister Assumpta, our regional superior in South Africa, she shared with me that a few weeks ago there was in the Southern African Bishops' Conference and Major Superior Conference a talk where people were invited who feel discriminated by the Catholic Church because they live in a homosexual partnership, for instance. And they said, this is how God made us. And we feel discriminated by the teaching of the church, which doesn't allow us to act out our sexuality. But this is a part of our identity. We cannot change our nature. So Sister Assumpta said, she admitted that these thoughts are very new for her in the South African culture. She still struggles with some aspects of it, but she says, we are working on it. And to speak with people who feel differently and who love differently allows us to widen our horizon. And she says that we cannot teach, spread the good news when people say the church itself is not accepting us as we are. So this was also one positioning we made 3 years ago when we said our charism, our mission statement is, as God became powerless and vulnerable in the child Jesus, we allow ourselves to be touched by others, by the realities of others' lives. We empower women, giving women a voice and encouraging people to begin anew. This is our mission statement. And we are always looking, what is the dignity, the human dignity meaning? And where is it hurt? Even also in our church. And what can we do to overcome that discrimination? 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I held a speech when we had a meeting with Benedictine monks from Münster-Schwarzach, the mother of Inka Mana Abbey in the Diocese of Eschweiler. We came together, and this was only shortly after the German parliament allowed homosexual partners to marriage. And then I just shared some thesis with them saying, shouldn't we as religious men and women be the first one to say, yes, we are on the side of people who say from themselves, we are different, our sexual identity is different, and this is part of our nature and how God created us. because we as religious, we also don't live according to our nature. What we say, we live celibacy, we live chastity. This is also different from what people think should be normal. We don't have children, we don't have intimacy relationships with whoever. We say, but this is our call of God, to live celibacy, chastity, as religious for the sake of the kingdom of God. So shouldn't we be not the first one to say, we understand that others are also different, love different and live differently. So of course that was a provocant thesis, but we discussed it. And then we had a lively debate on sexuality and our vows and things like that. So just to give you 2 more concrete positionings we made as Franciscan servants. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Claire, if you come up.
Sister Catherine,
Hello, Sister Claire.
Hello. I just want to comment on what we have said. Religious women must have a voice, firstly, in the church. And now, what makes me sometimes like a bit nervous or angry is that in the church, the women who feel are called to be priestess or priest, I don't know which word to use. I feel they are not speaking out enough, because if they feel they are called by God and yet they are quiet, they are not speaking out enough to stand up against the patriarchal structures. I feel they are not speaking out enough. We have to speak like in Acts, when the way they were living in that older days, in the Acts. I feel we have to die as women if we need to die for what God is asking of us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sister Claire. I think the women are speaking up more and more. And what helps us is the social media, the internet. We have now ways of connecting worldwide, which we didn't have 20, 30 years ago. There is an internet platform, Voices of Faith, one word, Voices of Faith, or World Women's Council. It's a small foundation in Liechtenstein, a very, very small country between Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And this foundation gives a lot of money to connect women all over the world. If you look at that platform, you would see many, many voices of women speaking out. Overcoming Silence was one social media campaign some years ago. Overcoming Silence, where women worldwide say that they were victims of abuse, also by clergy, by priests, by bishops, and where they say we have to overcome the silence, we have to speak up. We are not, sometimes women who are affected by abuse, they would say, I'm the only one, which is not true. So we have to speak up, to say what happened to us, and also to criticize the patriarchal structures, the power of the clergy, which is very much still in many, many countries. And I think women have to say, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. We see things differently, and connect and give us support instead of course, there are also many women, this was also now mentioned in the UISG meeting. Clericalism is not only a thing of priests or bishops. Clericalism is also a thing of lay people. Many women are against the ordination of women, and they would just withdraw when we come up and say, I feel a vocation, or I know women who have a vocation. And I want also that women are involved in spreading the good news, giving homilies. Yeah, we need a diversity. Yeah, and then there will be women saying, no, I don't want that because I'm used to what I have and I cannot imagine that things are changing. When I was talking to Pope Francis 3 years ago and asking him really to reorganize that commission, talking about this deaconess, ordination for deaconess, because there was a possibility to ask him questions, and I was the first one to be there at the microphone. And then the next superior general after me, who came from Eastern Europe, she said, oh, Pope Francis, what the predecessor said is not so important. But I was so angry. Why does she just make a comment on what I had said? Why can't she just leave it like I expressed myself and then come with her own issue? So sometimes women are not supportive, and we have to create networks to overcome that clericalism in our church.
Sister Katharina, we are here in the chapter thinking about what are the emerging issues for us right now. What is God calling on us? Where is God calling on us? How are we moving along? And as you know by heart, those chapters can be very much focusing around the own congregation, and in particular when times are hard. And they are hard these days in almost every congregation. At least that's what I get to see. Maybe I don't see everything. So I would be interested from your experience, from your thoughts, how you help your congregation, how you live as sisters in your congregation, to make sure you are addressing also the outside even more than just focusing on the internal side, and how you make that flipping the coin, that move from staying completely focused internally to the external world.
Maybe you should ask this question to my fellow sisters. They would maybe complain that I'm very much involved in the synodal way and giving talks here and there and presenting my book. And maybe they would miss me sometimes, just to be there and to visit them and to have time for them, which I feel always that tension, because my position, has this inner responsibility to be there for all the members, the sick, the old, the young ones, the middle-aged in Germany, in the other countries. But there's also this position to represent the community to the outward, to the society, to the church. So there is the connection, and the balance has to be guaranteed, let's say. Of course, in my position, I also see that with the exchange I have, and also these meetings, even if they were only online with the major superiors of the whole world, is always inspiring. You see sisters from Africa, India, Philippines, Canada, and this is also encouraging, saying, okay, let's open our horizon, and just bringing then this input I heard during these days back to my community, sharing what I heard, printing out the papers, and when we have a next meeting, a chapter of Maths or whatever, just sharing what I heard and allowing the sisters to talk. The older they are, the less they go out, the less they have the possibility to get new ideas from somewhere else. So this is also my duty to inform them, to share. And I see also that our limitations and the processes of transformation we have to go through because of our limitation, our old age and things like that, this is also a chance. Yeah, you, the sisters in Schledorf, you would never have sold your provincial house if the demographical situation in your province wouldn't be like it is, but it is like that. And this allows you now to invite other people to live on your property. And there are new chances of contact, of exchange, of sharing. And I think this is our charism, that we have to share what we have. Our houses, our spirituality, our way of living. And there are so many people, at least I would say in the Northern Hemisphere, sharing our values. They don't want to possess everything. They don't want to own their own car. They like to share. Young people live simple and choose forms of poverty. And we promise that when we say we make the vow of poverty, but others share it, although they don't enter religious life. I see that this is a chance also for us.
Thank you.
Or let's say a last issue I would like to address is the climate change. And I think as religious, we could easily connect and contact with cooperations to protect our planet, our creation. There's a movement, Churches for Future, or the Youth for Future. There are African initiatives to plant trees and to help that the Sahara doesn't grow. There's so many initiatives we could connect with. We from our spiritual background and others, because it's touching our lives. So maybe this is also a moment you can just connect. Or in Peru, I don't know, the forests, how we can protect this, and also address against the companies exploiting the nature.
I come with the second question, which is sort of contradictory to what I've said before. I said we want to look outside, but I want to tap on your experience with your international community. I know that your leadership team, the leadership team of the congregation, is internationally staffed. And you have a sister in the US who is part of the leadership team. And maybe we can just tap on your experience, how this was working, in particular also during these times of COVID, how difficult it was. And you're not living together. The leadership team is not in the same place. So maybe you can share a little bit of your experience, what is working, what is maybe also challenging on this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 2013, we had a general chapter and we said, internationality is small in our congregation, but it's a reality. And in between, many German sisters died, but the young sisters are mostly living in South Africa. And our region in America, they say that sooner or later their mission will be fulfilled. Their numbers went down to 6 sisters. But one of our counselors is American, the regional superior from America. And she was elected in 2013, although the community was not prepared. We didn't discuss that long time before, how could this work or not. We just had this insight. We should have at least one sister who brings into the General Council that perspective of the English-speaking regions. And then we made that experiment. And the first 6 years, of course, we looked that we can come together at least 3 times a year. Mainly, Sister Antonia comes to Germany, and then she stays 3, 4, 5 weeks long. And she accompanies me mostly to the visits when I go to South Africa, because she is also English speaking. And we had an international workshop for the sisters in the juniorate program, which was worked out by her and another sister from the German convents. So we started to really put into practice more elements which show that we are an international community. And 2019, Sister Antonia was re-elected. We wanted to continue that good practice. Then she was not able to fly. I was not able to fly. But we then established this Zoom conferences once a month that we talk 2 hours long at least. And we feel more connected since the pandemic situation. We have many meetings, of course, without her in Germany. Every week we meet, the 4 of us. And there's not a provincial leadership team for our German convents. So in our structure, the general superior is automatically also responsible for the German convents. So there are many issues. They are really German issues. And it's not requested that the total number of the council is always present. So we talk, the 4 of us discuss the issues, we make a decision, and then Sister Antonia would receive the minutes immediately after the meeting. And then we would have another phone call or video conference where we discuss the thing further. So she's always informed about what's going on. And in major issues, like if someone wants to be admitted for a first profession or final profession, or when we have to vote on huge amounts of money to spend or to sell a house or whatever, of course, I would always make sure that all councillors are present and that we discuss the thing. And as we are planning the whole year in advance, so now we have dates for the whole year, and Sister Antonia this year comes even more often because she couldn't come last year and in 2020. So this year she comes even more often to be with the sisters, and then this is a great help also for me. I can say we have very good experiences. And I think next time, 2025, we would surely have a South African member in the council. I think this will be the next step.
Good. Thank you.
Of course, what I want to say is the language is a very big issue. It is helping that now all of us are talking English. In the last term, we had a sister. She was a counselor, and she didn't know English, so we had really sometimes a problem always to translate from German to English, from English to German, which takes more time, but it's also possible.
Thank you. So then, once again, thank you, Sister Katharina, for spending the time with us, for letting us get your insights, your perspective. I'm sure it will enhance our reflections, our discussions that we will continue throughout the day.
It was a pleasure for me to be invited. Thank you for the invitation. All the best for you. I will accompany you in my prayers that you can continue with your chapter, and don't be afraid. God gives you a future full of hope. All the best for you.